Hey geeks, welcome back to the channel. Haven't done one of these in a while where I'm just looking directly into the camera and talking. In my last video, I referenced going to see The Flash after I had reviewed or walked you through that Dr. Midnight graphic novel. That video was shot the week The Flash came out, but I just got around to posting it this week. So I wanted to do a follow-up to that because I had mentioned that I was going to do a review of that movie. And some time has gone by since that film was released, obviously. It did not do well. It's probably putting it mildly. I was actually expecting it to do somewhat decently. I didn't think it was going to make $1 billion, but I thought, you know, it was within the realm of 500 to 700 million. I forget what they spent on it, but I don't know if 5, 6, or 700 million would have broken it even. I think it probably would have, with a little bit of profit there, but I don't think that was to be. So I did see the movie. I saw it in Dolby Cinema, which was a fantastic experience compared to IMAX. IMAX is great, but I'm a fan of Dolby Cinema now. The surround sound, the picture quality, the reclining seats, you just can't beat that experience right now in theaters. So that part of it was great. Overall, I did like the movie. Might be an unpopular opinion, but you know, Michael Keaton returning as Batman definitely drew me into this film. And I understand people have some issues and reservations about supporting a movie that Ezra Miller is in, and I share those concerns as well. You know, there was a time when I thought I wasn't going to go see that movie at all until they worked in the Michael Keaton angle, and it was, if you're a Batman fan, it's worth going to see the movie. No, I think it's out of theaters now. But it should wind up on streaming soon, and you know, DVD and Blu-ray and so forth. I have a feeling that the film is actually going to get some legs streaming and on disc. I think there are a lot of people who were curious about it, wanted to see it because of Michael Keaton returning as Batman, but just didn't want to, you know, show up in the theater and pay money to Warner Brothers and to everybody involved in this film. As a sort of protest against Ezra Miller, and just fandom in general, where it is right now with moviegoers. You know, there's a lot of backlash out there against superhero movies. I don't need to go into the details. There's a million videos on YouTube that will get you into the details as to why this is happening. So, you know, but I do think that if you're a Batman fan, this is definitely a movie worth checking out. I think the calculus by the studio was, in order to get fans into the seats, to give this movie a chance, bringing back Keaton as Batman was a logical calculation. I can't blame them for that. The fact that Keaton himself is sort of enjoying a resurgence lately, with the, you know, couple of Marvel movies he's been in, and you know, with the fantastic Birdman film that he did 7 or 8 years ago, which almost kind of, I don't know, is sort of like art imitating life, imitating art with that movie. Because in that film, in Birdman, if you've seen it, everybody, you know, he used to play the superhero Birdman, which is obviously Batman. And everybody was like, man, when are you going to go back and do another Birdman movie? Because he was trying to do some off-Broadway, you know, work. And that's what the film was about. But there's this pull of everybody saying, you know, you're Birdman. Why are you doing this other stuff, you know? And so eventually, you know, in real life, and what is real life anymore anyway? In real life, he does end up again playing Batman, you know, in this film, and he does a hell of a job. In fact, I wanted to see more of him, and I'm sure there's a director's cut out there that has a lot of deleted scenes, and that would be enough for me to go back and rewatch this on streaming or on disc when it comes out, and it should be out soon. I mean, At one point I heard they were talking about it hitting streaming on Max the middle of July, because it was such a bomb at the box office. But no, I do think it's supposed to arrive sometime in August, and I will watch it again. So I had some quibbles with the film. Was it the best superhero movie ever? No. Was it a great superhero movie? Yes, in my opinion, it was. I thought it was fun. I thought it was relatively close to the Flashpoint paradox, which it's based on. Those comics or graphic novel. In terms of having to put it in the template of a cinematic universe, which is what Marvel has to deal with. With their various outings. Secret Invasion being one, which is absolutely nothing like it was in the comics. So, in a cinematic universe, what they're doing is, they're grabbing these titles from the past that were popular, and they're trying to graft what's going on in the cinematic universe into that title. So, the Flash movie wasn't called Flashpoint Paradox like it was in the comics, but it was, clearly influenced by that. Very influenced by it. So, but, yeah, it's a movie that had a lot stacked against it, though. You got the Snyderverse fans out there who were against this film because it represents the end, basically, of Snyderverse as the James Gunn regime, takes over. I am a Snyderverse fan, unabashedly. I am not. Maybe I don't know if I'd call myself a Snyder bro. I don't worship everything that Zack Snyder has done, but I do think that the Snyderverse got shortchanged, and that he should have been able to complete his vision. I think they would have been better off financially had they let Snyder complete his vision of Justice League and these characters and so forth. Anyway, that still did not deter me from going to see this movie, because any film where I can get, Michael Keaton Batman, Batfleck, who I believe is probably the best Batman. That's a controversial opinion, but really, any opinion on a Batman is controversial. So, get over that. Any film that's got, Gal Gadot coming back as Wonder Woman, even though she was in it for like 35 seconds, is good enough for me. No Henry Cavill, we know what happened there. I think fans are ticked off about that. So you got Snyderverse fans ticked off. You got Henry Cavill fans ticked off that he's not, didn't make an appearance as Superman in this movie. You got, people that are just in general tired of superhero movies. You got people who are afraid the movie might be too woke. You got people who don't like Ezra Miller. You got people that, would rather just sit home and watch it on streaming when it comes out. There's still, I think, a contingent of people who have grafted onto streaming, don't want to go back to the theater now. So this film had a lot working against it. So yeah, maybe they were a little bit too optimistic in its expectations. I think some of the marketing around it, especially in the run up to the film, the Zavlov, oh, it's the greatest superhero movie ever, and getting Tom Cruise to make some statements about it positively, and some other folks, it felt a little too contrived by the marketing geniuses. It felt a little too disingenuous, and movie-going fans are not in a very good mood right now. They're not mentally in a good place right now, and understandably. And again, I'm not going to get into those issues because that could take up 3 whole hours of conversation. So, so this film bore the brunt. What I like to say about this film is it got soloed, because if you think about the Han Solo movie, fans were so ticked off about the Last Jedi or the Final Jedi or whatever the hell they called that second monstrosity from the Kathleen Kennedy era. They took it out on Han Solo, which was mostly a perfectly fine Star Wars movie, but they were not happy with the Rian Johnson film. So Solo got soloed, and it underperformed as well. So there's not going to be a Solo sequel like they were hoping, and ergo with the Flash, there's not going to be a Flash sequel either. Sorry to disappoint. Oh, and I remembered another faction of people that are pissed off about this movie is I guess the Flash TV show on CW, which I never watched, but I think the guy is Grant Gustin. Is that the actor? He didn't make a cameo in this film because a lot of DC, if you haven't seen it yet, a lot of DC characters do make cameos, and I'm not going to spoil it beyond that. Other than that, Grant Gustin's not in it. You probably already know that. So yeah, they were mad about that. But yeah, I mean, you know, there were cameos I wanted to see in the film too, but I'm not going to like, you know, throw the film out because of it. I think given the hand that they were dealt, Warner Brothers actually did a pretty good job. And they were dealt some really crappy hands making this movie. You had regime change, you know, in the studio with the executives. You had new ownership. You had the rancorous uproar on social media about really everything. So, you know, this is a hard time in history to make movies, I think. Especially a genre that's going into, like, what now? Probably it's, you know, let's not even think about Iron Man. Let's go back to, like, the Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire in what was that, 2000? 2001, 2002? Is really when sort of the modern superhero movie age began, when we had the kind of special effects that we could utilize to make these comic book visions come to life on film. And that reminds me also, another quibble about this film is the CGI. Let's get into that a little bit as I take a sip from my Star Wars tea mug. Talking's hard, y'all. So, yeah, so the CGI, there a lot of people didn't like the CGI in this movie, in The Flash. And, you know, I've gotten to the point where I don't see... There's good CGI and bad CGI. There's a lot of conversation about that. This is one of the rocks that people like to hurl at movies now. Oh, the CGI was horrible. It's bad CGI. I don't really care anymore about CGI, you know. We ought to feel lucky that we even have special effects, whether they're practical or computer generated, that can get us to the point where we can have these movies, okay? Because I'm old. And I remember, let's go back to 1978. You know what I had in 1978? Almost squat. Okay, I think I had, you know, we already had the first Star Wars movie, so we were hungry for more. We were a year away from Star Trek the Motion Picture. So I think 78 is a good year. We had Damnation Alley. Okay, look that one up. Damnation Alley. All right, go look at the special effects in that movie. We had Laser Blast. Go look that one up. It's directed by Joe Dante. Go look at the special effects in that movie. And any number of other cheesy, you know, horror films that utilize practical effects, which in my mind, in horror movies, practical effects are better than CGI. But anyways, let's focus on science fiction. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot out there. And the reason is because the special effects could not convey the things that happen in a comic book brought to the big screen in a live action film. We just didn't have the special effects. You know, you had, 1978, okay, you had the first Superman movie with Chris Reeves, okay? Look at the special effects in that film and compare them to the bad CGI films of today where people are flying around. There's not much of a comparison. Today's films look infinitely better than the special effects in the 1978 Superman movie. Now, is 1978 Superman a superior film to today's movies? Probably a lot of them, but not all of them. You know, it had its charms. It got some things right. It got some things wrong, like every film. Is it a classic, though? Yes, it is a classic. But the point I'm trying to make, though, is you could not create this number of films, this much product on TV and in movies without the special effects technology that we have available today. You couldn't do it. It took so much time and money and craft and personnel and effort to create practical effects films before the digital age, to the extent that it slowed down the number of films you could create. Studios only had so many resources. So this whole good CGI, bad CGI thing now, of course I want to see good CGI, but I'm not going to slam a film because, you know, they had to cut some corners on some of it. Yes, I mean, there are some instances where bad CGI is really laughable. I don't think The Flash is one of those instances. I know people are talking about the babies and the chrono sphere and so forth. But, you know, if they come out and say what they said, you know, about, hey, look, you know, this you're kind of looking at an artificiality in that scene, especially the cosmic treadmill scene. The babies, yeah, they looked a little weird. But also, you know, I don't know what it looks like when I'm able to move faster than speed of light. I don't know how other things appear. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of leaving it up to the interpretation of the filmmakers on that. So, you know, anyway. But there were a number of films, you know, that were created, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years where people were talking about, oh, the CGI was bad, the bad CGI. I'd say mostly for the films, yeah, I've seen some CGI that I thought was like, that was like really obvious CGI, like it looked animated CGI, you know, it looked like video game CGI. But if you look at it like a lot of Asian fantasy films, modern day, like they go all out on the CGI too. You know, a lot of this fantasy martial arts stuff that you can find on Amazon Prime, and they're like unabashed about it. Like they don't care that, you know, that this is like, you know, seriously over rendered CGI, you know. So why should I care if it's like that in some of these American films, you know? So I don't know. I guess my biggest qualm about CGI today would only be like some stuff does appear to be over rendered. Like there's just too much detail on some of the stuff, on some of the costumes and the ships and that kind of thing. But actually, I'll blame Midjourney more for that, because everything people do in Midjourney is like way over rendered, you know. But I haven't seen Ant-Man Quantumania yet, which appears to be a movie that probably the CGI was over rendered. But I would not, you know, if I saw that film, and I probably will at some point, I'm not going to check that box as a strike against the film. I'll crush it for other reasons, you know, having to do with the basics, plot, story, character development, etc., editing, directing, you know, but not so much for the CGI. So anyway, that's my rant on that. I think the bad CGI thing is a kind of a warrantless argument, but it does come down to personal taste. And so, you know, we live in a free market-driven society, and the market has spoken. People did not want to see The Flash, and so they didn't. And that's totally fine. But I do have a feeling, though, that a lot of people eventually will see The Flash. They just won't talk about it, you know. Or if they do, they'll talk amongst their friends. You know, I think Warner Brothers is probably going to get a pleasant surprise when this comes out on DVD and Blu-ray and streaming, because I got to think, if you're a Batman fan, I don't know how you could have resisted the urge to not go see this movie. The Michael Keaton elements were the best part of the film. You know, it just, I wish they had 20 minutes more of him in the movie. And I know a lot of people say, well, then it was just about a Batman movie with the Flash. Maybe that's what they should have done. Maybe they should have just called it, you know, Batman Resurrection 89 with the Flash or something. You know, I don't know. But for me, it was the scenes where, you know, they were rescuing Supergirl. The fight scenes were just, if your adrenaline didn't get flowing watching him back in action, man, and, you know, and again, I hear people, oh, well, it's a stunt double. Well, of course it is. It's Hollywood, man. You know, he wasn't doing half the stunts in 1989. You know, I mean, not everybody's Keanu Reeves or Tom Cruise, you know, so, but yeah, if that didn't get your bat juices flowing when he was taking on the soldiers, then I don't know. I don't know. You might want to check your Batman fan card. I'm just saying. So yeah, I didn't go back and see it in the theater, but I am looking forward to seeing it again, streaming on Max. I will probably get the Blu-ray because I'm a physical media completist to a certain extent. Because, you know, you never know when that internet gets turned off. and you can't stream anymore. But if you got your old school Blu-ray player, you know, you still got your movies. So yeah, I overall I liked the film. I liked the film. I'm not going to get into things I didn't like about it, actually. You can find several of those things on YouTube, on other videos. But what else about the movie, though, positive can I say? I actually liked Supergirl, too. You know, the trailer, I kind of didn't like her look. I thought she looked a little too sullen. And she is a little bit, but you know, there's enough of a character arc and development in the film to give the reason why she is a little bit sullen, you know. And I'd like to see more of that actress play Supergirl. I think her name is Sasha Cale, I think. So yeah, you know, I didn't really have a problem. I ended up liking the character. And what I liked about the film also is, you know, there were multiple character arcs in this movie, which is, you know, it's always hard to do that. And I think the movie ran 2.5 hours. And it's always hard to compress that into 2.5 hours. But I mean, you had a you know, Bruce Wayne character arc, you had 2 Barry Allens, and you had the Supergirl arc. You know, basically General Zod and you know, and the Kryptonians, they were essentially, yeah. I mean, I'll buy into that one criticism. I mean, they were just kind of cardboard cutout villains that they had to throw in there. But I mean, who else would you? I mean, how else were you going to write it? You know, I think they were so deep into the writing and shooting of the movie when all kinds of stuff outside of their sphere of influence changed. Because remember, this was supposed to be a Snyderverse movie, so General Zod, you know, would have figured into that. So I think it was too late to back out, you know, by the time they kind of reconfigured the DC universe with James Gunn coming in and all this other stuff. So, you know, but yeah, we didn't need to get a character arc on General Zod in this movie because we already know what his deal is. And he's already appeared, you know, he's already appeared dead in the Justice League movie. So, you know, he appears in this movie. So, yeah, you know, didn't need a character arc there. But the fact that they were able to fit in 4 characters, and to a certain extent, a little bit on the peripheral, you know, sort of a closure of the character arc for Barry's father, and the first look at his mom, you know, and what their relationship was like, you know, with what his relationship was like with his mother as a child. I thought all that was pretty well done. It left some questions open, which I think was by design, again, going back, you know, to when they thought the Snyderverse was moving forward. So, you know, but not every question has to be answered in a movie. You know, I think that's usually a sign of a decent film, especially if you're maybe setting it up for a sequel, which I'm sure they were thinking that, even if they had to recast Ezra Miller, if this did well, certainly a sequel would have been warranted. So they did leave one key question out there that they could resolve in the next movie. That will never happen now. But if you go back and read the Flashpoint Paradox, that question will be answered. So, this is my other tip, you know, if you're going to see the movies, read the comics. It's just, I think it's just good practice. You know, I know there's some people who just see the movies and they've never read the comics, you know. Some people are just going to stick to the comics only and never see the movies again, which is apparently the way the audiences are shifting, perhaps, because they're not showing up for most of these movies now. So, yeah, you know, that question about who killed Barry's mom is it's answered in the comic books. So, but what I liked about the four main characters and the character arcs that they were able to fit in to a 2.5 hour movie is that this is something that, you know, I told my friend Foz, who went and saw the film with me. I told him, you know, when we came out, I said, Marvel needs to take note here because they're not doing that in a lot of their recent films. You know, there's not much of a character arc at all in a lot of these films. Especially not a hero's journey type arc. So, which is what you had in this movie. So, I mean, this movie felt like, to me, like it was made like in 2008 or 2010. You know, it just had that feel of those now almost saying old school superhero movies, you know, when you think about it. You know, so yeah. All in all, it was a good film. I think that you could do worse, you know. I think people who decide to watch it, who had misgivings about it, might come out somewhat pleasantly surprised. So I think it's worth checking out. That's enough about that. What else do I have going on? I'm working on a video about a number of books I've read. If you go back to my introduction video, my first video, this channel is not going to be 100% about comics. It pretty much has been up to this point, and a tiny little bit about movies, hence this review of The Flash. But I also read a lot of books, and this summer I've been going down a rabbit hole in a couple of different areas that are kind of related to one another, non-fiction-wise. Non-fiction. So yeah, I'm working on a video. That video is going to come out when I finish reading these books, which I'm almost done with them. But I will grab one of them, which I actually just got in the mail today. It has something to do with this. This is called Synergetics by Buckminster Fuller. And I'm pretty excited about it. Not really scripting this video much. It's going to be off the cuff as usual. I have a general vague working idea, but there's going to be something like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly 8 books I've read, of which I think I've read 6 of them now. This book that I just showed, again, this is a thick beast of a book. This is close to 900 pages. I think the original edition, this is the paperback, obviously. The original hardcover, I think, was over 1,000 pages. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. This book was so detailed that in its thinking and its process that he had to recruit this individual, E.J. Applewhite, to help him write it. And E.J. Applewhite wrote a book about his experience helping Buckminster Fuller write this book. And I've already read that book. I've read that book. So so we're going to go through all of this. If you don't know who Buckminster Fuller is, and I was kind of shocked, a lot of people don't know who he is. And that's one of the things I'm curious about as to why more people don't know who Buckminster Fuller is. Yeah, I'm kind of going to go through what I gleaned out of these books, which is a lot. And there were a couple other peripheral rabbit holes associated with. I'm going to talk about how I was always vaguely aware of Mr. Fuller, but not completely aware of what he was all about. And I actually came to him by way of another person who was famous in this period of time, in the 20s and 30s, all the way up into the 70s and 80s, an architect by the name of Frank Lloyd Wright. And so reading a book about him, actually it was vice versa. I was reading the biography of Bucky Fuller, but that book mentioned Frank Lloyd Wright and his interactions with Mr. Wright, who was a visionary architect of the time. And so that sent me kind of down the Frank Lloyd Wright rabbit hole for a bit. And then what I found that these two guys also have in common is they met an individual by the name of Georgy Gurdjieff, I think that's how you pronounce it, who was sort of a Russian mystic who had come to America. And I found that this individual's had quite a bit of influence on art and architects of that period of time, which is really kind of I think roughly about a 30 to 40 year period. No, I'm mistaken. Well, yeah, about 30 or 40 years, from maybe the late 40s all the way into the mid 60s. So anyway, that video is coming. It won't be the next video. I still have a lot of work to do on this one, just in terms of finishing up these books. But I am kind of excited. because that is one of the things I wanted to do with this channel, is talk about my geeky book obsessions, not just comic book obsessions. And there'll be some other things, some other comic book deep dives that are coming up. Currently trying to think about the next one to do there. Certainly I have plenty of comics in my vault of boxes, like that video I did a couple of videos ago. Plenty more where those came from too, to go through these mystery boxes of comics that I have from the 80s, and I only have a vague idea of what's in them. Those are always a lot of fun. Got a pretty good number of views on that last one that I did, so I definitely want to do that again. Having said that, that's all I've got for today. It is the 2nd of August, and I hope you're having a wonderful week and you have an even better weekend. Until then, stay geek.